Hello, and welcome to Winston-Salem State University Department of Information Technology's tutorial on document accessibility. This is part one of two where we will deal with Microsoft Word accessibility. Accessibility is extremely important, especially in the field of higher education. It's important that we make information, documents, and anything we can accessible to all of our students, faculty, staff, all of our users, regardless of any disabilities they may have. And that's what this tutorial is all about. Most of our accessibility guidelines give us a way to make sure that our documents are accessible to what is known as a screen reader, or a type of accessibility tool that someone with visual disabilities uses to have a document or a web page read to them through the software. So first things first, in this Microsoft Word tutorial, the first thing you're going to need to know is how to run your accessibility checker. And I'll show you that now. If you go to your File menu up here in the top left corner, check for issues right here, and then check accessibility. This will pop up the accessibility checking pane over here on the right hand side with a number of errors and warnings that we should deal with in order to make this document fully accessible to our users. Now, some convenient aspects of this accessibility checker are the details it provides whenever you click on any particular error or warning. I'm going to click on this picture number 1 error, missing alt text here, and you may notice a couple of things. One is that it highlights the picture in question, and another thing is that it adds additional information to this lower region of the accessibility checker, which is extremely helpful because not only does it tell us why we should fix this, in case we were wondering, but also if I scroll down with this little scroll bar, it'll tell us how to fix it, which is absolutely helpful. So, if in your own accessibility document creation, you create or encounter an error or any kind of issue that we may not cover in this particular tutorial, refer to that additional information area down here, and it may give you some good clues on how and why you should fix any particular error that you may come across. So, let's get started. The first things first that I want to talk about is headings. You might see that there is no, except for this table row, header rows, warning or error here, we don't actually have any errors that deal with document headings, like topical headings, chapter headings, and that kind of thing. So in my opinion, in this simple kind of made-up sample document here, all about tacos, this first line should be a heading. Now, before I knew anything about accessibility, I might highlight this text, I might make it size 26 font, and boom, all of a sudden it's a heading. However, this doesn't work when I want to make this a heading for a screen reader. A screen reader kind of reads everything in a bit of a computerized voice and a kind of monotone voice. And it would read this large text just the same way it would any of the other text below. And so if I want to make this an actual header, and by an actual header I mean giving it the background information and the tagging behind the scenes to make this a header and to denote this as a header to a screen reader, I need to use these styles up here in the toolbar. A lot of folks have never used these and maybe wondering what they're for. They can be really useful, but especially useful when dealing with accessibility. So if I wanted to make this a heading level 1, and a strong recommendation is that all documents should at least have a heading level 1, if it's just the title or whatever it is. So I'm going to highlight my text here, and I'm simply going to click on this heading level 1 style. So that changes the look of it, but more importantly, it adds a tag to this particular line, an H1 tag, or it stands for heading level 1. And this will allow a screen reader and someone listening to this document being read to them to know that this is a level 1 heading or a major topic. As you go through your particular document, you might have subtopics of any particular topic. And so if you wanted to denote subtopics, like in this case my beef tacos and chicken tacos down here, what I'm going to do is highlight these lines and I'm going to make these a heading level 2. Heading level 2 means that this is a subtopic of our heading level 1, our main topic up here. So I'm going to do the same thing for chicken tacos here. And I'm actually going to scroll down my document a little bit and make the rest of my quote-unquote headers or headings official headings by using my styles. And last but not least, this table heading, we'll get that as well. Now, these headings, while you may notice, again, they didn't have any warning over here, are particularly useful in a lot of ways. You may find that there are a lot of conveniences that an accessible document might provide, not just to those with disabilities, but also people without disabilities. And I'll show you a couple of those now. One thing that adding a header or a heading can provide a document is a navigational structure. If I were to go to the navigation panel, let me go to it, view, this view tab, I'm going to open up my navigation pane. All of these headings that I've just added, my heading level 1 and heading level 2 headings are all over here in my navigational panel now. And so for a particularly long document, this could be really helpful in order to navigate through a particularly long document. Now, not only that, speaking of navigating a particularly long document, these headings also can help generate a table of contents, very similar to our navigation pane. We'll close this for now. Let me go to, let's see if I can find it here. Layout, references, here we go. In the References tab, there's a button here called Table of Contents. If I were to click on this and choose a certain table of contents, it automatically creates a table of contents for me, complete with page numbers and everything, and it pulls this information directly from the headings that I just added through those style tools. And should I add to this document, maybe make it 3 or 4 pages, any other headings I might add or whatever page they might exist on will be updated if I simply right-click on this document, click Update Table, and if anything were to change, I would click OK, and it would refresh this table of contents with any new data, new page numbers that it might contain. But anyway, that's just a convenience factor that I wanted to show you. I'm going to get rid of this table of contents for now, as that is beyond the scope of our accessibility tutorial. So, now that we've got headings out of the way, let's talk about some of the actual errors that are in our accessibility checker over here. Starting with the first one, our missing alt text, which is short for alternate text. Alternate text is a way to describe a picture to someone who couldn't otherwise see it. So again, if I click on picture number 1, it will highlight the picture in question. And now to add alternate text, all you need to do is right-click on an image, go down to the Format Picture option, and in this new panel that shows up, Format Picture, there is a tab that says Layout and Properties. We'll click that, and now we have an alt text field that we can enter into. We only need to enter in something into the description, and in this case I'm going to keep it kind of simple. I'm just going to say a beef taco. Now, how descriptive you want to be in your alternate text varies on the relevance of the picture to the rest of the document. A silly little tutorial document like this doesn't need a whole lot of detail, but if this were perhaps a cookbook where I had multiple different types of tacos and I wanted to distinguish them well, I might say this was a steak taco with onions and cilantro on a flour tortilla, and I might get a little bit more descriptive. But for this case, the picture isn't super important, so I'm only going to give a brief description. Moving right along, I'm going to click on the next picture, and I'm going to add A bit of alternate text for it as well. I'm going to say a chicken taco for this one. I'll use my accessibility checker window here to automatically take me to picture number 3, which is a pork taco. I will give it its alternate text description, pork taco. And finally, I will edit my last image here with another short description. And that's it. And so, as you may have seen, as I entered in that alternate text, all of those errors in our accessibility checker have disappeared. Now, if you are not sure if an image has alternate text or not, even if you have ran your accessibility checker and it's not showing you any errors of missing alt text, sometimes an image may already have some alt text, especially if you are copying and pasting it from another source, and you want to check and make sure that that alternate text is accurate. Sometimes it might just be a file name of the image in place of the alternate text, and that's not quite accessible. Some file names can be very vague. It just might be image-123.jpg, and well, if that were read as a description of that picture, it wouldn't say much. So you want to make sure that all imagery you use has appropriate alt text, and if you ever want to check and make sure, you just follow that same step. Right click on a picture, format, and you can check that layout and properties pane and look at that alt text to make sure it's got something descriptive that is appropriate for the image. Moving right along, we will go to, I'm actually going to skip down to the warning area of my accessibility checker where I have unclear hyperlink text, which is, let me click on it to take us right there. Now, unclear hyperlink text, generally this is going to be an error given to us anytime there is a raw URL on our page, or just a plain web address with the full http://www and so on. The reason why this is considered inaccessible is the sheer, well, a few different reasons. The sheer length of a URL, first of all, can be daunting. Rather than just saying, hey, here's a link to the taco website, I've here got a long URL that is going to be read again in that monotone computerized screen reading voice. And so it's a lot quicker for them to get through this document if I just say, here's a link to a taco website versus http://www.cookingchanneltv.com/shows/taco, and so on. And so especially with a particularly long URL, this one actually is kind of short, relatively speaking, but there are some URLs, maybe you're linking to a Facebook post or something like that, that has just a huge amount of characters, special characters, dashes, numbers, all kinds of sorts of things. It can be really daunting to have to listen to a full URL like that. So the best way to present this is, instead of using the full URL, we'd want to take it and we would want to hyperlink actual descriptive text. So I would cut that URL out here, and I'm going to actually change my sentence above it to give us a descriptive link. I'll say, to find some of America's best tacos, go to the Taco Trip website. Sounds simple enough of a description. I'm going to right click on this highlighted text. I'm going to click the hyperlink option, and now I am going to paste that URL into this dialog box. Click OK, and now I've got a descriptive hyperlink. One feature of screen readers is that a user can hit a hotkey, which will then read out all of the links on a page if they were trying to navigate quickly. And so when they would get to this link, it will say link the Taco Trip website, and they'll have an idea of where that link's going to take them. Some pitfalls you want to avoid are having a hyperlink that just says click here or learn more. Those type of links, while short, don't offer enough description on where that hyperlink is going to take the user. And so it's a guessing game. So you always want your hyperlink text to be descriptive of the location where that link is going to take them. All right, So finally, we have some accessibility tips for our tables, which would include the last two errors that have been pointed out on this accessibility checker. Number one is missing alt text. Similar to an image, a table also requires alternate text. What that does is allow a user using a screen reader to get a brief description of the table, and so they can decide whether they want to listen to the entire table be read to them or skip it if that particular table of information is not useful at the time. So how to do that is very similar to how we did the images. I'm going to right click anywhere on my table. This time I'm going to go to the table properties. And conveniently in the table properties there is a tab that just says alt text with similar title and description fields. I just need to enter something into the description, and I'm going to say a quick one-liner: my favorite tacos in order of rank. Click OK, and now you can see that our alt text error has gone away and leaving us with a final error, which is that this table doesn't have any header rows. Excuse me. And by header rows I mean column headings, headings that label the type of information that is in that particular column. Now, if we look at the table, I have a bold quote-unquote heading here and a bold quote-unquote heading here. However, again, like our original heading that we had at the top of this document, just making the font larger or darker or a different color doesn't make it a heading, not officially, until we actually denote some background information that will allow the screen reader to know that this is indeed a heading, or a table heading in this case. So to do that, I'm actually going to highlight this entire row. I'm going to right click on that particular row. Again, go to my table properties, and this time the row tab. Now this is easy to miss, so I don't expect anyone to know this off the bat. I actually had to be taught this myself. In this row tab there is a small little checkbox that says repeat as header row at the top of each page. Now that does have some other features built in with it, but the most important part is that it adds a heading tag to this particular cell of the table that lets the screen reader know its purpose. I'm going to click OK. Now visually nothing changes, but behind the scenes this adds some additional information that a screen reader can use to better organize this information while it's reading it. Now, if you look back over to the accessibility checker, we'll see that we have a green check, very satisfying, that lets us know that for the most part this document is indeed accessible. Now keep in mind there are some things that accessibility checker isn't quite able to check. Contrast accessibility is important. Say we might have had yellow text on a white background, that would be extremely difficult to see, and that wouldn't meet accessibility standards. However, an accessibility checker like this doesn't generally check for contrast or other issues that can be detectable by the human eye. And also, while we're speaking of tables, there are a few other tips that you should know. Table regularity is important, which basically means that your table structure needs to be very simple, and it has to have the same amount of columns in each row and the same amount of rows in each column, which basically means you can't have any merged cells, no split cells, or any other nested tables, as in a table within a table. And they have to be fairly simple. Now, if you're going back and remediating older documents, and perhaps you might have a table that's more complex, maybe there are plenty of merged and split cells, and to someone without a visual disability, it might be really easy to read. However, it's extremely difficult for a screen reader to know in which order to read a complicated table like that. So if that's something you're dealing with, it may be a better idea to split up a complicated table and turn it into 2 or 3 maybe more simplified tables. That way you can still display the same type of information. It might take up a bit more space, but it's a lot more easier to read for a screen reader, and just as easy to read for someone without any visual disabilities. So next, typically we, when we're putting a document on the web or emailing it to somebody, most often we will convert it to a PDF first. And so we'll do that to wrap up this tutorial number 1 of document accessibility. And in section number 2, we'll then go into making a document accessible in its PDF version. So to convert this, all I've got to do is go to File, Save as Adobe PDF, and there are alternate ways to do this. I'll say OK. I'll just save this to my OneDrive here. And it's converting. All right, and now we've got ourselves a PDF that is largely accessible. And we will work on making this fully accessible in the next video.